First of all, welcome everyone to our first of many WealthBlock Masterclasses. As I mentioned, we had an incredible registration turnout for this first class, so that's wonderful to see. And as said, this is the first of many, so we're really glad everyone could share a portion of their Friday with us. And the purpose of this is really just to give you a deeper dive of education into various really important ways to use your platform. As a team here, we're constantly always iterating. We're building new features every single day. And as you've heard us say many times, most of those features come directly from your feedback. So, these aren't just things that we just come up with out of thin air. It's really users like yourself who are using our platform every single day to power their capital raising initiatives, who are giving us all of the input we need to build new features to make your process more efficient. So today's first masterclass is on the topic of investor lists. And for even those of you who are currently using lists extensively, I think you'll find that there's some hidden gems and ways to use them that you weren't previously aware of. And as I said, that's because we're constantly iterating and developing new features as feedback comes in. So we're not going to make this very slide heavy. We're going to actually jump into the platform so you can see hands-on how to use it. But real quickly, just kind of want to run through an agenda of what we're going to cover today. And really, it's going to be broken up into two parts. The first part is pretty straightforward, creating investor lists. So we're just going to cover basically the difference between a dynamic list and a manual list, and then an account-based list versus a user list. So there's some slight differences between how you construct your list that are very important to know as you use those lists in other places in the platform. And then we're going to get into some of the more exciting stuff, which is how you can use your list, specifically around gating access using your list. So you can see this list here. There is an extensive amount of ways you can use your list to adhere to any compliance requirements that you have, or to just tailor your experience for your investors. So, subsets of your investors only see certain things based on their desires, their preferences, and their mandates. So as you can see here, we'll talk about how you can use lists to gate your offer as a whole. And then we'll kind of drill down and get a little bit more granular. We'll talk about offer tab restrictions, document sign restrictions, and then at the end, we'll talk about what you can do with lists regarding email automation and how you can segment your user base in terms of what communications they are seeing. And lastly, probably our newest feature is using lists around custom pages. Many of you may not even know about custom pages in our platform, so we'll give just a little bit of background on that in the context of using lists. So we are going to jump right into it. Let's go back over to creating investor lists. So we're going to head over to the CRM. If you're familiar with our platform, over on this left nav, you know that this is where all the admin functionality resides. So if we head over to accounts, you can see all of the accounts in your system. The first thing we're going to talk about is dynamic lists. So what exactly is a dynamic list? This is a list that auto-populates the investors in that list based on questions they may have answered, or maybe preferences or options that you have set on their account. Now, for instance, if you wanted to create a list around various users' investment experience, so you could say, hey, everyone who has extensive investment experience, let me use this filter to the left here to filter by those users. So this is just showing the people that currently today in your CRM have that specific answer in their profile. You can then go ahead and say, let me save this list. So we'll go ahead and save this as a new dynamic list. We'll call it here investors with extensive experience. And we'll save that list. So now this list appears in your menu. It can be recalled. You can see your other lists here. And it being a dynamic list, what we really mean by that is as investors answer this question, maybe this is a question that you present to your investors right when they sign up, hey, what's your investment experience? They'll automatically be put in this list. If an investor changes this answer, they'll be taken out of the list. So this really increases your efficiency of managing the platform because you don't need to manage who's in and out of lists. And if that list is being used to gate access or to send email communications, people are automatically put in and out of that list. It's pretty powerful to use a dynamic list. And furthermore, all of these options that you can use to create your dynamic list are completely configurable. So if you are familiar with our form builder, it is a robust tool we have to build out all the profile screens, all the questions that you could ever want to ask an investor. So this is all completely customizable. And that's the form builder is a topic for another webinar. I'm sure we'll get into it at some point. But just wanted to touch on the fact that you can customize the filters that are then feeding into your dynamic list. Now, in addition to dynamic lists, what you can also do is build manual lists. So, there might be cases where you say, hey, there's not some specific property or question that they answered that I want to create my list off of. But, maybe I went to a conference or something, or I met a group of people, and I just have this, manual list of people. So what you can do is you can go here and just select the people that you want to add to a list. Another great way to create manual lists is when you bulk upload investors. So let's say you got a list of 200 investors and you want to get them in the system quickly. You can bulk upload all of them, and then when you do, we'll ask you to give that upload a list name. So now you can always come back and refer to that list that you bulk uploaded. So that also would create a manual list because it's individuals that are in a spreadsheet that you may have had. So when you create a manual list, you just select people, and you go over here and you'll say save selected accounts as a new list. So you can go in here and maybe we'll just call it manual list for now. And we'll go ahead and save the list. Now, what's really interesting is that even though it's a manual list, doesn't have to be a static list forever. You may one day say, hey, I need to remove someone from this manual list, or maybe you need to add new people from these manual lists. So anytime you have a manual list, what happens is when you select it from the menu, what we do is we bubble all the people to the top who are on that manual list, and then we automatically check them so that immediately when you select this list, you can see, all right, who's on my manual list? Great, I can see if these 5 people are on it. But then what you can do after that is, let's say I need to add a couple individuals to the manual list. I can go ahead here, simply check them, and then save the list. And when I do so, I get a few additional options. First, I can just update the manual list. So, hey, I had 4 people on it. Now I have 6. I want to update it, or maybe I removed somebody and I want to update it. You could also save this as a new list. So maybe you have a manual list of 10 people, and all of a sudden now you want there's 15 people or 5 new people who need to be on the list, but you don't want to get rid of the previous list. Maybe you want to kind of maintain that that state and time of those 10 people. So what you can do is save this selected list as a new list. So it essentially allows you to copy your list and extend it by saving a manual list where you've added new people and you saved it as a new list. So that's the difference between dynamic and manual lists. One of them you're physically checking who you want to be on it. And the dynamic one is which we believe is much more powerful, but there's use cases for both. And the dynamic list is going to allow you to have the list automatically grow, decrease in size based on various questions that people are answering. The dynamic list we created was just on one variable, but you could have multiple variables. You could have, their net worth, or their age, or whatever it is, their investor type. Those could all be combinations of answers that drive a dynamic list. So now that we have, a good idea of the 2 types of lists and how to build them, I want to talk a little bit about account-based lists versus user-based lists. And before we get into that, it makes sense to talk a little bbit about the difference between accounts and a user. So sometimes this can be a little confusing when people first use the platform, but it is easy to explain in that, the account is the investment entity. So in the case of, let's take a step back here, and let's go over to this client here. So we have this account here called Elite Capital. That's the investment entity. So, if an investment is being made, it's being made on behalf of Elite Capital. But Elite Capital may be an organization that has several users. These are individuals, principals, managers, whatever, who work at that institution. And so those can be individual users on the account, and you can have as many different users, and you can have different roles. So you can say, hey, you're an admin on the Elite Capital account, or maybe you're an individual who's not an admin, so you can't make updates, but you can still log in and things like that. And this also applies to individuals, just because it's not something that's unique to institutions. You may be an individual. Let's say your name is Mike Smith, and Mike Smith is the investing entity. So any investments under that account are for Mike Smith. But maybe Mike Smith has his spouse, maybe his RIA, maybe his accountant. Maybe these are all people that need to log into his account for various purposes. So he can go ahead and add all of those users onto his account and give them different access roles. Maybe the accountant, he just wants them to be able to come in and download various tax documents and things like that. So you can have multiple users on an account. So the reason we kind of want to explain that is because when you're creating lists, you can have them be account-based or user-based, meaning that if it's account-based list, then every user on that account will gain the access of wherever you put that list. Or let's say you're sending a bulk email, every user on that account will get that bulk email. But maybe there's cases where you just want an individual user on the account to have some access, or to be able to receive an email. So to do that, you can convert this view that you're seeing here. So this is the account-based view right here. And you can see that because Elite Capital here, as we saw, had several users, but we're still only just seeing one row here, right? So we're seeing accounts. If I was to select Elite Capital, that's going to be an account list. To create user lists, you simply just need to add any column that pertains to a user. Yeah, and you'll see them in here in parentheses: email, user, first name, user. So that's going to add user columns. In the same way that you can use the form builder to extend the account forms, you can do that on the user form. So you may have user level fields also as well. So let's add an email user here to the list. And what you'll see all of a sudden, you got this Elite Capital sitting here, multiple rows. And the reason is because now we're looking at users. You can see email user, and you can see there's different email addresses here. So what's going to happen here, if I start to create a manual list, it's going to be a user-based list, because I'm actually looking at users now. I'm not looking at the account as a whole. So if I went here and created this list, now all of a sudden these 3 users would all be on that list. These other users of Elite Capital wouldn't be on that list. So if I go ahead and send them an email, or I say, hey, people on this list can view a certain offer, only certain users would be able to, and the other users on the account wouldn't as well. This can be done for dynamic lists too. So it would require that you have a user level form field that you want to filter on. So in this case, let's drill down in here and see what that looks like. So on the user level here, we created let's jump into one of these users. We created a field called notifications, and you'll see how this is important later when we talk about emails. So what we wanted to do is create a field that we could use to segment users on accounts for the purpose of notifying them for different actions that were taken. So in this case, we just created 2 categories here. We created accounting and capital calls. So maybe capital call notices, certain individuals should get it, and then maybe, hey, you have your accountant or lawyer or whoever needs just general accounting-based emails. So these are at the user level, you can see here. So if I go back over to the CRM, and if I find that field under here, type, I can filter by that as well. So let's say we filter by capital calls. All of a sudden now we see the 5 users in our CRM who have that set, that field, that notification field that we showed, set to capital calls. So again, we can create a dynamic list here. What's nice is if you create this dynamic list, then all of a sudden now, as soon as you set that notifications field, and remember in the CRM, you can make things admin only or investor facing. So you can have it so that, hey, I only want the admin to control the notifications, but maybe you want the investor to control it themselves, which is probably good practice. They're adding users to their account. Maybe you're letting them determine who should get what notifications. And as soon as they set a notification preference that it's a capital call, the person's automatically going to be on the list. You don't have to do anything at all to maintain that list. So that's basically it on creating investor lists. Just to kind of recap what we covered here, we talked about dynamic lists, which are created by selecting a filter on your accounts. Those filters are customizable. You got manual lists where you just check people manually, or you create it by bulk uploading people. You got account-based lists that apply to the entire account. If you got users on the account, all the users will be in that list, and then you can drill down a little bit further and go down to user-based lists, where you're actually selecting specific users within accounts, or you're doing it dynamically based on a user preference. So next, we're going to talk about all the ways you can use the list. So at the surface level, when you're in your CRM, you'll see you can click into your list, or select a list or select people, and you'll get this little button here that says engage selected. So there's a lot of bulk actions you can take to use the list. So I just wanted to briefly touch on those. You can send an email to a bulk group of people who are on a list. You can upload documents. Let's say you had a list that is around, the investors in an offering. So over on the bottom here in your filters, you have options for engagement. So let's say I wanted to, create a list around all the people who invested in a particular offer, like, MMP Strategic here. You can go here and say there's 9 people here, and then you can immediately, you can create that as a list, or you can take actions on that. So maybe MMP, this offering has quarterly performance reports, and you want to be able to upload those documents only into the investors' accounts. So you could quickly do that. It'll bulk upload them into all their accounts. But you can do other things. You can change account types, delete accounts. So, fairly straightforward bulk actions. But where we see the real power of the list is all the other places that you can use it in the platform. So going back in here, you can really granularly use lists to gain access to various resources in your platform, as we said, to really tailor an investor's experience, or adhere to any compliance requirements your organization may have. And this is one of the major benefits of having a tightly integrated CRM. The CRM can seamlessly talk to the rest of the platform. The lists that are created can be used directly in the investor flow or the data room, or even, as you'll see, email and custom pages. So we're going to jump into that right now. So let's head back over to the platform. We're going to jump into an offering, this one right here. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and you'll notice the trend of how we start from the high level, and then we're going to drill deeper and deeper and deeper to show you how you can use these lists. So if we go over to the manage view of the offer, over here, there's a section called access. So if you're familiar with this section, this allows you to gain access to the platform at a high level. You'll see how you can do it at the kind of lower level later. And what you can do is you can use these lists as allow and deny lists on the offer. So let's say your offer is in invite only status, as it is here. What you could do is, when it's an invite only status, take a step back, that means that only people you invite to the offer can see it. So using our email tools, like we just said, you could bulk invite people and then they can get access. But maybe you don't want to always have to email people. You just want people who are on a list or answer a question in a particular manner, because it's a dynamic list, to see the offer. So what you can do is you can go ahead and just add that list. So you could say here, maybe this venture deal is 50 million is a allow list. On the flip side, let's say your offer was in a more active status or public status, where you said, hey, everyone can see this offer, but I have a group of people, for some reason, I don't want to see the offer. So you can do the reverse here. You could say, let's add this list as a denied list. And again, if you're using a dynamic list, it's going to happen, in real time as they're answering questions. It's going to automatically add people, to those lists. So that's pretty powerful. At the high level, you can say, hey, you can't see this offer, or you can't access it based on whether they're on a list. Now, It gets better than that, because you can actually say, maybe I do want people to see, I always want to market this offer, right? I always want people to get a taste, to see a little bit of what's going on. I don't want it to be completely hidden. But, for compliance reasons, my compliance officer is saying there's some private details, right, that not the general public shouldn't just be able to see. Maybe someone has to sign an NDA before they can see these details. So if you're familiar with our offer builder, it's kind of like it's very similar to like a web page builder, very easy to build out their content. And so this is usually where you start. You start in the offer details and you build out, it's essentially your digital one pager, where you can embed videos and things like that. So it's really cool. But let's say you wanted to either just segment the information on your one pager into multiple tabs, or you have private information that need to be on another tab. You can go over to display here. And then down here, you can add up to 2 additional offer tabs. So let's say, I'm on another tab, and I'm just going to call it private details. And you'll see as soon as I added that, it automatically shows up here. So it's ready to go. All of a sudden, I can start adding content to this offer. I can go here and say, hey, let me add a summary module and whatnot. But what if you wanted this tab not to be public to everyone? So what we can do is, let's go back over to display. And we're going to click this little gear next to the tab. And what we can do again is we can use those same lists. The list we created in our CRM, since it's tightly integrated, can be used to control access to the actual offering, or to this actual tab in this case. And you can also see there's plenty of other options. If you want people to, review a document, acknowledge they reviewed it, e-sign a document to gain access, such as an NDA, you can do that. But for the purposes of this webinar, we'll add an account list here. And we can say, hey, so I created this list earlier called private access. So only people on this private access list get to see this. And you'll see when I go over here to the preview mode, and I go to that tab, you'll see because I'm not on that list, I can't see it. So even though we had content in here, it says to view this content, you must be on an approved list. If you chose the NDA option, what would happen when you click this is the NDA actually would pop right up, and the investor, their information would be pre-populated in there. If you're familiar with our awesome ability to map form answers, such as their name and things like that, to the NDA, that could happen, and then they could sign it to gain access. So that's an example of how you can use lists to gain access to a tab that may have private details. Now, you probably heard us say this all the time. Almost everything we build comes from direct feedback and suggestions from our users, which is fantastic. We try not to make a lot of assumptions over, what is most beneficial for the capital raising process. This feature came directly from one of our clients about, the additional tabs was a while ago, and then we added the restrictions, a few months ago. And as soon as we added this, our clients, being as savvy as they are, they said, well, what if I want to do that on the video tab or the data room tab or updates? Maybe I want to do the same thing. I don't want them to be able to see videos until they take some action. So then we said, hey, okay, that's a fantastic idea. Let's add that in. So you can do the same thing here. You can come down here under the video tabs, hit the little gear, and you can apply a list there. So you have the ability to really gate all of this information at the tab level. And so we said, let's go deeper than that. So what you can do then is you could do this at the document level. So you might say, data room, I got lots of public documents. They're fine. If you have access to the offer, you can get to the data room. And there's things that are fine for you to see, but maybe I have really, really sensitive information. Maybe something, your financial model, or your cap table, or whatever it is. And so what you could do is you could add those same restrictions. You could do at the document level, you could do at the folder level. And again, you have several restrictions. One of them is the account list. So again, I can say, hey, only people on a certain list can view this folder. Only people on a certain list can view this document. So as I said, there's the trend here where you can start at a really high level, get access to the offer, but you can just continuously drill down based on your compliance, based on the level of security and access that you want to provide in your platform. So another really, really powerful area that you can use these lists is in ESign Visibility. So most of the time you'll see subscription documents, and they'll have, they're several pages long. They have information for individuals, they have information for entities, and to provide the most seamless experience to your investors. You only want to have placeholders where they can enter information based on who they are. If you're an individual, I don't need to answer all these questions for an entity, and vice versa. So best practice is, to actually key into templates. So when you pull up our ESign interface and you're dragging over those placeholders for where the investor name and the amount are in ESign, you'll do that twice, once for an individual, one for an entity. And when you do that, you'll then want to make sure that people only see the ESign documents that are relevant to them. So when you add an ESign document here in your investor flow, what you can do is set the visibility. So you can say visible only to, by default, we've always had this individual entity because that made sense from day one to segment those to provide the best experience. But then we got feedback that, hey, there's other granular details that, even within an entity, there are different types of entities, and some of them may need to fill some information related to the offering, and some have to fill out other information. How do I segment that? Well, we let you create as many templates as you want. In each template, you can just have it, the information that people need to enter. You can just have those sections specifically for different types of investors. And then you can come in here and split those up, segment those by list. So I could say, hey, maybe people on my private access list see this ESign document. Maybe I'll add a whole nother ESign document here. And maybe this is for people who are on my, venture deals list. And what happens is you might have in your investor flow 10 different ESign documents in here, but when the investor goes to invest, they're only going to see the ones that are for them. And what's really cool about this is, in the case of dynamic lists, this is happening in real time as they're answering questions. Let's say in your KYC form, you have a question about, what's your investor type, right? And then maybe you have 7 different investor types, and maybe you have a different ESign document for all 7 different people. So you got 7 in here, right? So what happens is, as soon as they answer that question and they hit continue, they're automatically put in that dynamic list. That's how quick the dynamic lists work. And then the system says, hey, these other 6 ESign documents aren't relevant to them. We're not going to show it to them. This one that is, we'll show it to them. So you can see the lists can be working in real time, and they control visibility of the ESign documents that they have to sign, which obviously is a very, very important piece of the flow. So lastly, real quick, before we get into an extended Q&A session, if there are any questions, we want to talk about how these lists can be used in email automation as well as custom pages. So let's hop over here. And so we had a good question earlier about creating kind of a notifications field. As we said, there's nothing kind of standard built in because it's really easy. You just build in, you configure however you want. You can create a notification field, you can use it however you want. And so one of the areas is in email. So if you go over to engagement emails, this is where you configure all the emails that are going out from your platform on an automated basis. So on the top here, you have your transaction email. So you got your transaction created, transaction approved. The top level here is your global email. So basically, every time transaction is created, this templates can go out versus this template. If you ever want to override this, like say you want some specific messaging for an offer, like this offer here, maybe the approval process is a little bit different. You want kind of custom message for this. You can always add an offer specific message, right? And so what's cool though, even on the global, is that you can add placeholders, right? So you can put, like the offer name, for instance, the name of the investor, whatever you want. These can be placeholders in here so that you can use a global template that automatically can dynamically change the offer name for the offer. But then you can use those lists again. So let's say this particular transaction, a lot of times in the transaction approved message, a lot of people use that for the capital call notices, because what will happen is a transaction will go through the system, a commitment only transaction. I want to invest $100,000. And then when you're ready to call that capital, you'll create a capital call transaction, right? And then you'll approve that transaction, and you want some message to go out to the investors to say, hey, we're calling X percentage of your capital. But you may only want that message to go out to certain users on the account. So in this case, we created this list called capital call notifications. So we can say, hey, send this email to people who are on this capital call notifications. Obviously, it's still scoped to the account of the transaction. So it's not going to send it to everyone in your CRM who's on that. It's just going to send it to the account that created the transaction, the users who have capital call notifications will get that. Additionally, if you want to CC anyone, maybe your attorney needs to get CC'd on every transaction, and you have a notification type called attorney or accountant, then you can CC those people. So that's another way you can apply lists. Next is a feature actually that we just released literally, what was it, last week, last Tuesday. So I'm very excited about it. Most of you probably already know that you can build email drip campaigns around your offerings. So, if you have, an offering based on what stages people are in the offering, you can have, specific emails go out to them. So we extended that to account lists, meaning that if people are in specific account lists, you can actually create drip campaigns for that, which is really cool because, again, for like the dynamic list, let's say, everyone who answers a question a specific way, that you have a drop down, you got 5 options, and they answer it a specific way, they can actually automatically be entered into a drip campaign sequence where, for instance, for my venture deals, 50 million and above clients, I can come in here, I can create a sequence of messages for them. So I can say, hey, I could choose, the style from here. I can have some text in here, and then I can specify when they receive this email. So same day would mean literally when they answer that they're, but let's say this email goes out to anyone who says their type is venture capital. As soon as they answer that, they're in the dynamic list. If this is same day, they're going to get that email. This usually runs every hour, so it'll be about an hour delay, which is actually pretty good because you want these to feel organic. You want them to feel like you're just super on top of things, and you're constantly checking your platform, and you sent them the email because you saw their activity. So that that delay is intentional, and then even further, you can say, hey, let me set up, I got one for same day. Maybe I'm going to set up a second one for 2 days. Maybe I'm going to set up a second one for 3 months. And all of a sudden now you have this drip of automated emails based on various lists. So super powerful. As I said, we just released this feature. Very exciting. Just as a testament to how exciting it is, we actually use using this feature ourselves. Our CRM has gotten to the point that we decided in-house at WealthBlock, and we use our own CRM for our own sales outreach. And then I can tell you, our VP of sales is ecstatic about this new feature and being able to create various lists and automatically just flip a flag on their account that puts them into a dynamic list, and then all of a sudden they get this series of drip emails. So that's transactions and campaign automation around lists. So real quickly, lastly, we're going to talk about custom pages. If you're not familiar with this feature, this allows you to extend kind of the pages within your platform, really, right? So, we have a bunch of built-in features. You got your offerings, you got your portfolio, my account, my documents. But what if there's something we don't offer and you just want to add a new page around it? So what you can do is you can add actually a new custom page. You can tell us exactly where you want that page to live on your URL. So we're on a demo platform, so this is our demo URL, but this obviously would be yours. Let's say this page is called promo. So, just type there, and then that's going to be where the page can live. And then you can build the page, and you can use the same easy offer building tools to build your page. So let's say, this is the promo I'm running. I got this nice graphic of the promo here. This is actually WealthBlock's promo, but you may have your own. And let's say that's your custom page you built. Well, you can do lots of cool things with this. You can set this as the landing page, meaning that when people log in for the first time, actually when people log in anytime, they'll land on this page, which is pretty cool. So if you don't want them to land on the offerings page and you want to just create a custom, welcome to our platform, so excited to have you, you can do so with custom pages. But why am I talking about custom pages? Because you can use lists here as well. So custom pages have access settings. So again, you can say everyone can view this custom page, signed-in users or users on a selected account list. So I hope everyone's getting the theme here on lists, and we absolutely love the feature and that you can use them in so many places. If you have new ideas, suggestions, you're saying, hey, I'd like to use a list for this, and you guys haven't thought of this yet, we'd love to hear it. As I said, this is how we drive this. One of our VC clients, really drove this whole entire thing here. One from, the landing page to, hey, all right, that's great. I got it as a landing page, but maybe I only want certain people to see it. Again, you can choose the list. One thing I forgot to mention is within the landing page, you could even choose, hey, all right, this is a landing page, but maybe I don't want it to be the landing page for everyone. Maybe I want this promo only to be for select investors. Again, you can use your investor list here, select who's on that list, and then only those people will automatically land on that page when they log in. So that's about it. That was 45 minutes as fast as we could. But as you can see, that there's just so many different areas where you can use lists in the platform. I'm going to hop back in here real quick before we get into questions, just to do a quick recap. Talked about dynamic lists from your filters, manual lists where you select them or you bulk import them. You got account-based lists that apply to all users on the account, user-based lists that apply to individual users within the account. And then you can use that list in all types of ways. For starters, the most straightforward is the obvious is the bulk actions around lists, uploading documents, sending emails. But then you can also use this list to gate access throughout the platform. Offer and deny lists at the offer level. Offer tab restrictions, getting a little bit more granular, and then all the way down to document restrictions. And then even within your investor flow to say, hey, you should only e-sign certain documents based on certain questions you answered. You can use your list and email automation to determine who gets certain emails. You can create drip campaigns around lists so that you can automate a series of emails to people on lists. And then lastly, you can create custom pages and say only people on a certain list should automatically land on this, make it a landing page, or maybe it's just a page out there that people can access, but you only want certain people to access. So that is pretty much everything I can think of right now on lists. Honestly, there might even be one or two places that I forgot about where you can use lists, but I'm pretty sure this is the core functionality we have here. But as I said, we absolutely love feedback. This is how we develop. This is how we make this platform better and better every single day. So if you have more questions after this, feel free to always email platform.support@WealthBlock.AI or visit our website for updates. One thing I forgot to put on here is we have a blog, actually, blog.wealthblock.ai, where we have, actually a lot of you who are on this call have been so gracious with your time and provided us interviews for those blogs. But, this webinar itself will go up on that blog too. So if you ever want to refresh yourself on everything that was covered here.
Yeah, thanks, Deji. Something to mention about this webinar series as we move forward is the topics are going to change. We'll have this every month, and we hope to see you all. And if you have any suggestions for any webinar topics that you want to expand on, please let us know. Thank you again for your attending. We appreciate the turnout. We appreciate the interest. We'll hear from you soon.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day today, and enjoy the rest of your Friday and the weekend.